I'm going to teach you how to generate leads for B2B tech sales so you make a ton of money and never go hungry. Lead generation has always been my bread and butter over the past 10 years working at Oracle, Google Cloud, and even selling at a startup with no brand recognition. Let's cut out the fluff and dive right into a lead generation strategy that actually works. The first step in a winning lead generation strategy is to build focused lead lists. You're going to want to build warm lead lists and cold lead lists. Let me walk you through each. Warm lead lists are lists of contacts at companies that have already engaged with your brand in one way or another. Maybe they evaluated your solution in the past, but you lost the opportunity. Maybe they engaged with marketing materials, downloaded a white paper, or maybe they attended an event or a webinar that your company hosted. If you want quick wins and quick meetings, start with a warm leads list, because these contacts are familiar with you and there's already some trust that's been built up. Contacts who have already engaged with you are much easier to reconnect with. You're going to build 2 warm leads lists that you're going to prioritize. First off, you're going to build a list for a closed loss campaign. A closed loss campaign is when you re-engage old conversations with contacts at companies that previously evaluated your solution, but for whatever reason didn't choose to move forward. What you're going to want to do when you engage these contacts is reach out, doing some quality control to get their feedback on why they looked at you in the first place, why they went in a different direction, what has changed, and what matters to them today. It's such a simple approach that really opens up a lot of conversations and opportunities. And closed loss campaigns aren't just a quick path to meetings, but actual closed revenue. How do you find contacts for your closed loss campaign? Go into your company's CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot and look up closed lost opportunities in your territory and find the appropriate contact and their contact information and use that to compile a list that you really should prioritize. The second warm leads list you're going to want to prioritize is engaging with contacts who have looked at marketing materials, they've downloaded white papers, and attended events, and you're going to use your company's internal systems and resources to find those contacts. Now, this list is really dependent on your company's marketing efforts. The bigger the company you're at, the more they're going to have warm contacts like this, because they're spending a lot of marketing dollars on campaigns and white papers and events and things like that. If you're at a small company, you might not have the ability to create a leads list like this. Although engaging with warm leads is the fastest path to meetings and revenue, if you really want to find large opportunities that are going to change your quarter, year, and career, you're going to need to build a cold leads list. Cold leads are contacts that have never engaged with you and your company, and they tend to have the biggest upside because the biggest opportunities, they don't fall in your lap via inbound marketing. When building a cold leads list, focus breeds success. You're going to want to focus on the ideal companies that mirror your top customers. They look just like them, and focus on the right personas or types of contacts at those companies that are impacted by your solution and the problems that you solve. By focusing on the right ideal client profile that has certain characteristics like company size, measured by employee count and revenue, industry, tech stack, and maybe other factors based on the company that you're selling at. And when you reach out and have a list focused on the right decision makers, influencers, people that can influence the buying decision, and end users who are actually using your technology, you're going to have much more productive conversations with people that are more likely to have a need for your solution and actually be at companies that have the budget and financial capacity to afford your solution. You want to be a sales sniper and not a shotgun seller who's spraying and praying at all types of companies and all types of personas, regardless of if they're the right fit. If you're an unfocused, scattered seller, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and you're going to run into a lot more resistance in your conversations. But when you focus your leads list, especially on the whales, the large accounts that are a good fit for you to help, that can change your quarter, year, and career, and the dolphins, which are mid-size, needle-moving opportunities that still can spend quite a bit with you, and you avoid the minnows or the companies that are a waste of time, you're going to position yourself to win a lot more. The not so fun part of building a cold leads list is that after you've identified companies that fit your ideal client profile, you're going to need to find the right decision maker contacts, influencer contacts, and end user contacts, and look up their contact information, including their emails, their phone numbers, using a contact intelligence database like Zoom Info. And you're going to have to build out that list of contact information so you're ready to go when it comes time to make calls and email and reach out to these contacts. Once you have your focus cold leads list in place with targets at your ideal client profiles that you can reach out to, you're going to want to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator to save the accounts that you're targeting so you can stay on top of compelling events and triggers and changes going on at those companies that introduce a need for your solution. You can also use Google Alerts to set up notifications for changes going on at these companies so you can pounce when the timing is right to resonate with those prospects. And beyond saving the companies, you'll want to save the specific contacts or leads in Sales Navigator to know when they're sharing posts and things are changing in their world so that you can engage with them with personalized and relevant communications. Now that you've got focused leads lists to reach out to, the next step in generating leads is building compelling messaging that resonates with prospects. Now, what doesn't resonate with prospects? What turns them off? Messaging that is all about me, me, me. Look at how great I am. Look how great my company is. Look at what we do. Look at these bells and whistles and technical features. The prospects don't care about that. They care about what's in it for them. And what is most interesting to the prospect really is when you frame relevant problems that they should care about that you can help solve, and relevant opportunities and business results you can help them capture. Good messaging looks like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we talk to people like you in your role at companies like yours all the time, and they're typically dealing with X, Y, or Z challenge. I'm curious which of these challenges resonates with your current priorities. I'm curious, how are you dealing these challenges today? That's going to open up a dialogue for an interesting conversation. Good messaging looks like, we help people just like you in your role at companies like yours in your industry and even in your local area produce business results like this. Would it be worth exploring if we can produce similar results for you? You've got to take your company's solution and everything you do and package it in a way that captures the relevant problems you solve and outcomes you help prospects achieve, and ultimately communicates the key aspects of business value: driving revenue, expanding market share, reducing cost, saving time, and increasing productivity, and reducing risk. You got to show prospects in your messaging how you help them do those things. You've got to communicate this business value in your messaging and tailor it to the specific role of the person you're reaching out to, whether they're an executive decision maker that has specific key performance indicators and objectives and ways they get paid, or a middle manager or influencer, or an end user actually dealing with the technology and struggling from their day-to-day to get things done. Now, in addition to framing problems and communicating value, if you really want to take your messaging to the next level, you've got to bake in these key ingredients. First off, showing exactly what a prospect gets in exchange for giving you their time. We're always entering into a value for time exchange where the prospect thinks, is this going to be useful to me? There's many things that we can offer in exchange for a meeting, and most fundamentally that comes down to offering relevant business insights that's going to help the prospect achieve better results, sharing customer stories, offering access to expert resources, maybe even offering an invitation to an event, a free coffee, or a lunch. Another ingredient we're going to want to bake into our messaging is empathy, showing the prospect that we get them and their problems and we're willing to put ourselves in their world. We're calling out relevant changes in their company, relevant changes in their industry, and the implications. And we're framing compelling stories that are very tailored to their unique situation. The more we crank up the specificity of the stories we tell, the more impact they have and the more our messaging resonates. Another key ingredient of compelling messaging that earns meetings is personalization. Doing your research and throwing in a personal touch that's so tailored to the individual you're reaching out to that it wouldn't make sense for anyone else. This is communication that shows you care. And although it costs you something to put in the research on their LinkedIn profile to find that personal nugget, that investment earns meetings and partnerships. And one more ingredient to bake into your messaging to make it irresistible, in addition to communicating clear value in exchange for their time, empathy that shows you get their world, and personalization that creates a familiar feel, is throwing in a touch of humanity. The only way to escape competition, especially from a prospecting perspective in an overcrowded market, is to be radically yourself, to be truly authentic. Maybe you throw in a relevant personal anecdote that makes them laugh. Maybe you take off your sales hat and say, yes, my job's to sell you something, but I'm never going to be able to do it unless we're solving meaningful problems and unless you actually like me as a person. Can we get some lunch? Can I treat you to a virtual coffee? Those are some examples of throwing in some humanity to your messaging that ultimately makes it irresistible and generates more leads. There's two more things you need to think about when it comes to bulletproofing your messaging and making it irresistible. One, you need to think about your differentiation in the market. How do you solve the problems you solve in a way that is unique and different from your competitors? And what is the business impact of that differentiation? Why should the prospect care about those differences, and what will it actually mean for them? And the second thing is thinking through the most common objections you're going to face from your prospects, especially around using your competition or using an in-house solution or no solution at all. You need to think through some of the pros and cons of how they're getting the job done today with a competitor, doing things themselves, or not having a solution. And then you need to be able to communicate the differentiators we talked about just now. What is different about your approach and what is the business impact? If you're ready to highlight your clear differentiators in the market and you're ready for common objections like they're using your competitor, you're going to be ready to rock with powerful messaging where you can dance in any sales scenario and generate more leads. Step number 3 is to define your outbound strategy. You're going to want to diversify your outbound approach across multiple channels, starting with the triple threat. Sending out a personalized value-driven email, making a cold call and leaving voicemails that point to your email, and also sending personalized LinkedIn requests and engaging and warming up prospects via LinkedIn. You're also going to want to consider using in-person events and taking prospects out to coffee, lunch, and dinner as an opportunity to really open up conversations, really as the most powerful outbound channel. So you've got 4 direct outbound channels right there. A direct outbound channel is when you are reaching out directly to your prospect, you to them, A to B. But you also want to consider indirect channels. Are you in a sales motion where you have a partner ecosystem? Like back when I was at Google Cloud, where I had a partner ecosystem with partners that I could co-sell with to the same prospects. And in some cases, partners already had existing relationships where I could reach out to the partner, build a relationship with them, get insider intel on the prospect, and then I could ride the coattails of the trust and relationship they already had with the prospect into the account. That's an example of an indirect outbound strategy through partners. I've also generated leads through venture capital firms that invested in the prospects I wanted to engage with, private equity firms that invested in the prospects that I wanted to engage with, as well as other types of service companies and software companies that sold to the same types of prospects as me. So think about what are the other types of companies that are selling to my ideal clients and how can I partner with them and synergize with them to set meetings and win deals together. And one other aspect of outbound strategy to consider is, in addition to multi-threading contacts at your ideal clients across different channels like email, the phone, LinkedIn, in person, and via partner introductions, is to multi-thread personas within a specific company. You're going to want to reach out to a range of contacts, including the relevant C-level decision makers based on the solution you sell, relevant influencers who can influence the buying decision on the solution you sell, and end users who are using your technology. It's great to take a top-down approach where you set a meeting with a C-level decision maker and they direct you to the relevant influencers and end users to evaluate the technology, but you can also start with influencers and end users who are closer to the technology to learn from the inside about their bottlenecks and challenges and their internal objectives, so that by the time you bubble up to the C-level decision maker, your messaging is shaped from the inside and highly relevant. Whether it's top down or bottom up, both are good approaches. And at the end of the day, you want to go wide and deep within your target accounts to create a groundswell that ultimately leads to meetings, opportunities, and revenue. Step number 4 is where the rubber meets the road. You need to set and achieve daily baseline activity levels per channel of cold outreach. If you're a sales development representative whose only job is to set meetings and build pipeline, and you don't have to run discovery calls or progress opportunities and close them, then you might want to set a target to match the industry average of around 100 plus cold calls a day. You're going to want to also set a target for cold emails and LinkedIn touch points, because as we mentioned, we're going to want you to multi-thread across channels. But you need to set targets for your daily activity levels and stick to them, because in sales and lead generation, activity is oxygen. And the more you increase the number of touch points you make across channels, the more opportunities you have to get responses from prospects, have more conversations, convert more opportunities, and drive more revenue. Sales is a numbers game, and eventually quantity turns to quality. Now, if you're an account executive who needs to self-source your own pipeline, you need to consider realistically how many outbound touches you can make per channel per day, because you have to factor in that you're going to be progressing opportunities and closing deals, and you do need to prioritize opportunities that you're progressing and closing. But the key is you don't want to become a prisoner to hope, dependent on certain deals that may actually fall through. So what does good daily prospecting activity look like if you actually want to generate a meaningful number of leads? You might want to consider picking out 5 companies that fit your ideal client profile and 5 contacts at each company, totaling 25 cold calls a day, 25 emails a day, and 25 LinkedIn touch points. That's a great baseline to start out with. And if you find on certain days you can up your numbers, then that's huge, because more activity is going to lead to more results. Once you've set and defined your baseline activity levels every day, you need to block it off in the calendar. And I encourage you to eat the frog, as Brian Tracy says, and do the difficult, uncomfortable thing like prospecting to generate leads first thing in the morning. Maybe you do a call block at 9 a.m. and you go for 50 minutes, which is a great amount of time to maybe make 25 dials, and then take a 10-minute break, and then you stack another block if you need to. And ultimately, if you want to hit, let's say, 100 calls in a day, you might do 4 blocks of 50 minutes on and 10 minutes off, and a total of 4 hours of prospecting if you're an SDR. To clarify, that'd be a total of 4 hours of calling, and maybe you fit in a couple 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off blocks of cold emailing and LinkedIn connection requests paired together later on in the day. If you're an account executive, maybe you throw in 1 cold call block in the morning and then 1 or 2 cold email and LinkedIn blocks later on in the afternoon. The next step to generating leads is to start to sharpen your actual outbound skills, starting with cold emailing. Cold emailing is like casting out a lure as you fish in the prospecting ocean. The lure is going to be shiny and personalized and value-driven. You're going to make it as attractive as possible. That is your email that is floating in your prospect's inbox, and you're going to bob that email, that lure, in the follow-ups. and hope that eventually the prospect's going to bite. What's great about email is that it's going to sit in the prospect's inbox, and even if they don't see it right away, eventually they can get to it. And the more you invest in learning how to write cold emails that get opened and grab busy executives' attention and get responses, the more it's going to pay off for you. And you've got to keep in mind that cold emails are like marketing that warms up the prospect over time. You're consistently sending them messages saying, hey, I help companies just like you and people in your exact role solve these problems and achieve these outcomes. I'm here to serve. I want to help when the timing's right. You get to send a cold email commercial over and over to the prospect. And first and foremost, if you want the prospect to open your email and actually read it, you need a good subject line. The subject lines that work the best are personalized using words that pull from the person's LinkedIn profile. Maybe it calls out that they have a cute corgi. Maybe it calls out a similar appreciation for the golden rule. And you somehow tie that into how you want to build a partnership and offer a partnership that aligns around the golden rule. And by way of doing that, you're creating a context that's very personal and familiar. You want to keep your cold email subject line short, ideally 3 to 5 words. And there's plenty of hacks you can use, like using the prospect's first name, Chris, cloud strategy, ? Or saying, please advise cloud strategy, or our cloud strategy, using phrases that make it seem like it's an internally forwarded email. But once you get a subject line in place that gets the prospect to open, you want to keep the body of the email crisp and short enough to where a prospect can read it on their phone and it all fits within their mobile device screen. You're going to want to have a framework that you use that's tried and true, opening up with a trigger or a reason for reaching out, highlighting the implication of that trigger or change going on at the prospect that you're reaching out to, highlighting the pain or the impact of problems introduced by the trigger, throwing in some social proof of companies like the prospect you're reaching out to in their specific industry that you help achieve specific outcomes and solve specific challenges, and ending with a simple interest-based call to action that's easy to respond to. Would it be worth a chat to explore if we can produce similar results for you? Would it be worth a chat to meet our experts and talk through some relevant customer stories? Now throw in some of the irresistible messaging ingredients I mentioned earlier, like articulating clear value that the prospect's going to get in exchange for their time, giving them a clear offer, showing empathy, demonstrating that you get them and you've put yourself in their world, that you can speak their language, and throwing in personalization and personal acknowledgement that wouldn't make sense for anyone else based on the research you put in, and showing that you actually care. And finally, throwing in a personal touch, like an anecdote, showing authenticity and reducing sales pressure. Throw those ingredients into your cold emails and you will get bites when you throw those emails out into the cold email inboxes of the prospects you're reaching out to. Next, you're going to want to get really good at cold calling, mastering the ability to pick up the phone and interrupt a stranger and open up a conversation that leads to a meeting and eventual opportunities. If cold emailing is like casting out a lure in the prospecting ocean and bobbing that shiny, valuable message like a lure in the follow-ups, then cold calling is like spearfishing. It's a little more aggressive. It's going to get messy. You might have to wrestle a bit, but you're diving in the ocean and it's the fastest path from A to B to make something happen, to actually wrestle with the prospect and get the meeting. And when I say wrestle, it very well could be a little bit of a wrestling match because you might get objections when you're on a cold call. But when it comes to mastering cold calling, 1, you want to make more cold calls to learn what works and what doesn't. 2, you want to model after others who have performed at a high level and steal what works for them. But 3, and probably what I should have said first, is you need a framework to guide your conversation from opening to setting the meeting. So you want to pick out a good opener that increases your conversion from pickup to having a conversation. You want to be able to deal with brush-off objections like, I'm not interested, I'm busy, I'm running to a meeting. Then you want to be able to pique curiosity and frame relevant challenges and results that you've helped other prospects with to get the conversation opening up and flowing. You want to ask questions that lead the prospect down a path to wondering about the art of the possible and if there's a better way with your solution. And you want to ask questions that ultimately keep the conversation going a little more, because the longer your conversation lasts on a cold call, the higher the conversion rates. Because ultimately, when you ask great pointed questions in discovery, you can find a hook, a pain, and a reason to set the meeting that leads to the prospect showing up knowing that it's going to be a good use of their time. Oh yeah, and you're going to want to have a framework to confidently ask for and set the meeting once you uncover the hook and the reason to set the meeting. And as I mentioned, you're going to face objections in sales. There's going to be resistance. It's going to get a little messy, so you're going to need to be ready to handle, we're on your competitor, we're doing this in-house, we don't have money, it's not the right time, I'm not the right person. And so guys, if you want an exact cold calling system from A to Z, how to open a cold call, all the way to how to confidently set the meeting, and 15 examples of real world objections and how to respond, then download my free cold calling system linked in the description of this video. Once you've mastered your cold email and cold calling skills, you're also going to want to master your LinkedIn social selling skills. First, you're going to want to optimize your profile with a nice photo with an open teeth smile with your face taking up 60% of the image, a solid banner photo that's professional, a headline that shows that you are a sales development representative or account executive being honest about your role and maybe the problems that you help customers solve. And then a bio that leads with the problems you help your prospects solve and the customers that you help, dropping some social proof that is optimized for lead generation. And once your profile's optimized, the real way to use LinkedIn to generate leads is to use Sales Navigator to keep track of your ideal companies and the changes going on in their world, so that you know when they're hiring a new CTO, it's time to reach out, or when they acquired a company or got a recent funding round, it's time to reach out. And you want to keep track of the specific contacts at those companies, the leads, to know when they're sharing posts so that you can engage with those posts with very specific, thoughtful comments. Because when you give a thoughtful comment and you say, hey, I love what you shared about this, when you specifically said this, it resonated, and I think more people need to see this post, and you tag someone else from your network saying, hey, check this out, this is amazing. You actually give a thoughtful comment. It boosts the visibility and the views of that prospect's post with their own network and with yours, and that is a way to directly contribute to the prospect. You can also reshare content of that prospect who you've never met shared, especially if it's information about their company and their solution and how it's different or causes they care about, to expand its reach with your own network. And it's going to say on LinkedIn, and it's going to notify that individual, so-and-so mentioned you, and they're going to wonder, who is so-and-so, which is you, and they're going to look at your profile. And there's only upside when you're bringing value and being generous to prospects, and it's going to create a sense of familiarity, and they're going to recognize who you are over time. And then you want to send a personalized LinkedIn request mentioning something unique about them that you appreciate, a personal touch that wouldn't make sense for anyone else, and reference that you've been emailing them and reaching out over the phone as well, showing that you're multi-threading and you're committed to getting in contact with them. When they accept your LinkedIn request, you don't want to jump out of the gate trying to sell them hard, but appreciate the connection request. Continue to share, personal touches of acknowledgement of things you notice about them, and highlight the intention to, build a relationship and explore opportunities to win together. You might over time want to leave a voice note with a warm, welcoming tone, which is a pattern interrupt and something unique that you can do on the LinkedIn platform. Ultimately, you can use LinkedIn as another channel to build familiarity, putting a face to a name, to bring value to the prospect, and also increase the likelihood they respond to your email messages and your cold calls by using LinkedIn to point to those other channels. And once prospects are connected with you, they're going to start to see your content. And if you're posting case studies and win stories from your best prospects, and relevant content about how you're solving meaningful challenges for prospects like them, Eventually, they're going to see that and they might actually engage with you after seeing some of your content. And last but not least, when it comes to generating leads, the follow-ups fuel the finances. There are fat stacks in the circle backs. So one of the most important things you're going to need to do is think in 6 to 9 month terms when it comes to your prospecting cadences, and keep following up with your prospects across channels, across cold call, leaving voicemails, sending LinkedIn messages, engaging with posts, and sending follow-up emails, engaging in person, going through partners. You're going to hit them across channels for months and months and months. When you stay pleasantly persistent, eventually they will warm up to you and they will find their way in your inbox responding for a meeting when the timing is right. Most people in sales give up too easily, so we should set expectations early on that it's going to take 8 to 11 plus touch points to engage with a prospect. I want you to think about starting off a prospecting cadence to a specific contact at an ideal client you're really trying to get into with the triple threat. Send a personalized, value-driven, empathetic cold email, then make a cold call, and if they don't pick up, leave a voicemail referencing the email. Engage with their LinkedIn content and maybe send a personalized LinkedIn request referencing your email, and do this all, the triple threat, in the same day. Then 2 business days later, follow up with a cold call and a cold email. 2 business days after that, follow up with a cold call and a cold email. The next week, every 2 business days, make a cold call and send an email. And then the week after that, maybe you start reaching out once a week for the coming weeks, and you extend this for months. And then in week number 3, you might shift from every other business day to once a week, and you make a cold call. If they don't pick up, leave a voicemail and send a cold email. And for the weeks after that, send an email and make a cold call once a week, and do this for the next 3 to 6 to 9 months. It's a long-term prospecting approach, and the key is that in every outbound contact, you stay personalized, you stay relevant and empathetic, showing that you're putting yourself in their shoes, you're sharing relevant stories, you're communicating value, you're offering insights and access to resources. We bake in all the ingredients of great messaging that we talked about, and if you do that for long enough, and you continue to have quality outreach, staying pleasantly persistent, I guarantee you will get a meeting and generate leads in any situation, no matter how stingy the prospect or difficult the account is to crack. If you're an SDR or account executive, you've probably experienced long periods of radio silence, reaching out to prospects, putting in effort, and getting no return. And it sucks. It can feel miserable. You think to yourself, what's the point? And I remember when I was an SDR at Oracle 10 years ago, when I was reaching out to a contact, a database administrator at a top company, and I reached out for months and months and months, and just got radio silence, crickets, no response. But I kept putting in the effort, even though there was no indication that success or a meeting would ever come. And in month 9, unexpectedly, when I was about to give up, I found an email in my inbox from that database administrator with a $200K opportunity sitting there right in front of me. I set the meeting, and my account executive was out of office at a bachelor party, so I actually had the chance to run the discovery, progress the opportunity, generate the quote, and close the deal with my account executive's boss. And when I closed that $200K plus deal, the feeling was amazing. All of the radio silence was worth it. And that radio silence became the rocket fuel that catalyzed my career when I hung my hat on that deal to make my case to get promoted to account executive, where I got into one of the best territories and best roles at Oracle and National Tech, making $120K plus in my first year as an account executive, with more money that I knew what to do with, where I was buying my whole team of 10 plus people coffees. So guys, if anything, when it comes to lead generation, take sloppy, messy action and follow up, because that's what fuels the finances. So in summary, guys, if you want to generate leads, here are the steps. You've got to set a focused target list. build a warm target leads list, build cold leads list that are focused on your ideal client profile and the types of accounts that you are well suited to help that are going to be profitable. Develop irresistible messaging, define your outbound strategy, set and follow through on baseline activity metrics that are going to lead to the results you're after, sharpen your outbound skills, including cold emailing, cold calling, and LinkedIn social selling, and follow up over and over and never give up, because your ability to just keep going and not stop will take you to unpredictable places. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, share this video with more people who could benefit from the message, and subscribe to the channel because I'm coming at you with videos every week to help you win at outbound and maximize your tech sales career. Make sure to check out some of my top podcasts and videos on cold calling in my Cold Call Mastery playlist. Make sure to download my free cold calling system with multiple cold calling scripts and multiple objection handling examples, in fact, 15 with responses that work. And if you want to be coached to outbound greatness, you're an SDR or account executive who wants to master the ability to generate leads and get promoted to the next level, then consider applying for coaching with me and my elite bench of real-world top-performing coaches from top companies like Oracle, Google Cloud, AWS, Vast Data, and others at the link linked in the description of this video. We'd love to partner with you on your own tech sales journey and help you rise up on this path. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of this growing tech sales community, and I respect you for investing in your professional development to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living, and we'll see you in the next one.